the bone basically has got a bone divatrate, which basically regulates the whole process. We have got the bone former, which is basically the osteoblast. We have got the osteoclast, which are bone resorbers, and we have got the regulator, the osteocyte. The osteocyte produces the rank ligand, which stimulates the osteoclast. It also produces sclerostin, which inhibits the osteoblast. Osteoblast produce OPG, which regulates the osteoclast as well. So the whole process therefore involves a interaction and a crosstalk between the osteoblast, osteocyte, and the osteoclast. Now, a number of hormones play a very important role in regulating the entire process, and as we discussed, growth hormone IGF-1 are definitely one of them. Growth hormone acts at multiple levels. It increases the calcium absorption from the intestine and phosphorus absorption from the kidneys to cause increase in both calcium and phosphorus level. It has a direct effect on the osteoblast to cause increased osteoblast growth and decrease apoptosis. It also increases the production of osteocalcin, alkaline phosphatase, and type 1 collagen, the basic structures which were responsible for bone growth. It has an effect via the IGF-1 pathway, which is further modulated by the IGF-BP5, which is a positive stimulant, and IGF-BP4, which is an inhibitory component causing bone growth. So it's not difficult to understand the growth hormone deficiency is associated with low bone mass. However, what we need to understand is that because of decreased size, there would also be a false assessment with regards to the bone health in this perspective. Acromegaly is associated with high bone mass, and growth hormone therapy has got a biphasic response. In the initial phase, growth hormone treatment may tend to decrease the bone mass, but after 6 months, generally, it has got a positive effect. So growth hormone is an important regulator of bone growth and bone health in this regards. Thyroxine has got an impact on both the osteoblast by producing the osteocalcin, IGF-1 and ALP, as well as at the level of osteoclast. So effectively, it is acting in a way of increasing bone turnover. Increased amount of thyroxine will therefore result in a overall bone loss, a factor which is also influenced by the direct effect of thyroxine on the calcium absorption at the level of the kidney. So thyroxine excess, whether it is a iatrogenic one or because of thyrotoxicosis, has an adverse effect in terms of bone health in that perspective. So thyrotoxicosis is associated with low bone mass. Hypothyroidism, on the other hand, will result in decreased activity of both osteoblast and osteoclast, resulting in a low turnover state. Parathyroid hormone is an important regulator of the serum calcium and the serum phosphorus levels, of course. It has got a direct impact on the intestinal absorption via calcitriol and phosphorus excretion via the sodium phosphorus transporter, causing an increased serum calcium and decrease in phosphorus from that perspective. It can take the calcium out from the bones in this situation. Now, PTH has a direct impact predominantly on the osteoblast, causing its growth, reducing its apoptosis, and it then produces a number of secondary agents like IL-1, IGF-BP5 and IL-6, and these basically are in a way the second mediators of PTH in terms of bone growth. The PTH effect on osteoclast is not through direct receptors, it's actually through the rank and the OPG pathway from the osteoblast. It will also increase the osteoclast activity. So like thyroxine, PTH is also associated with a dual effect causing both increase in osteoblast and osteoclast. So hypoparathyroidism causes low bone turnover, while hyperparathyroidism causes low bone mass. Treatment of PTH has importantly again got a variable effect. Intermittent therapy is associated with a predominant osteoblast response causing bone formation. So it's an anabolic agent which is used in the form of teriparatide, which is PTH 1 to 34, the active form. A continuous infusion of PTH, on the other hand, will cause bone resorption in that perspective. So PTH plays an important role in the overall bone health modulation. Calcitriol, we all know, has got an effect which is differential and depends upon the level of calcium in the body. In sufficiency states, it mainly increases the matrix formation, causing bone deposition, while in deficiency states, it will stimulate the osteoclast to give the reasonable amount of calcium from the body. It, of course, is the major regulator of calcium and phosphorus absorption at the level of the intestine and the kidneys, and therefore calcitriol is playing a very important role in terms of bone mineralization. Now, what we need to understand is that the major fundamental role of calcitriol in bone mineralization is provision of serum calcium. If we are able to maintain serum calcium via intravenous calcium in the setting of vitamin D dependent rickets type 2, which is the most severe form of impaired vitamin D effect, the bone mineralization process will not be defective. And this is something which we have to really understand in that perspective. Glucocorticoids, whether they are coming endogenously or exogenously in the setting of overdosing for physiological treatment or for inflammatory conditions, will be bad for bones. They've got a huge impact. They cause decreased osteoblast formation and increased osteoblast apoptosis because of the effect on RUNX2 and the BMP2 pathway. They will basically decrease osteoblast, they will increase osteoclast because they will stimulate the rank ligand and inhibit OPG. So the net effect is more bone resorption, less bone formation, overall bad for the bone. They will cause loss of calcium from the intestine, loss of calcium from the kidneys, and therefore they will ultimately result in adverse effects in terms of bone. The maximum effect of glucocorticoid in terms of bone happens in the first 6 months of treatment, and it is most commonly seen in the trabecular bone. So if you want to assess it, maybe a spinal BMD would be a good thing to look at. The maximum chance of fractures in the first 6 months. Take good care of it, give enough calcium and vitamin D, do a fracture risk assessment, and then decide treatment from that perspective. Calcitonin is basically a PTH antagonist, so to speak. It will basically act at the level of the osteoclast, causing reduction in terms of resorption. It is, however, a transient effect because there is a tachyphylaxis which happens to calcitonin. It decreases the calcium absorption and the phosphorus absorption, and therefore it will have an impact on the serum calcium and phosphorus levels as well. So if we talk about from a physiological perspective, this is not a very big effect, but from a therapeutic perspective, it may be used in treatment of acute hypercalcemia to inhibit the osteoclastic bone resorption, as well as some treatment in osteoporosis, which is not really effective. Sex hormones have a very, very important effect in terms of bone, and hypogonadism are the major cause of impaired bone health. Testosterone acting via estrogen through aromatization plays an important role in causing mainly the anti-resorptive effect by decreasing the macrophage colony stimulating factor and stimulating the OPG pathway. Estrogen also has an effect, as discussed earlier, on the osteoblast, causing increased matrix formation. The estrogen is also responsible for inhibiting the IL-6, causing further increase in cortical thickness. So the effect of estrogen is directly causing inhibition of osteoclast, increased activity of osteoblast, and increased cortical thickness via the IL-6 pathway. Now, this is responsible for the direct effect of estradiol in females through the estrogen receptor alpha, as well as in males via aromatization. There is also evidence that testosterone acting through the DHT pathway, the 5-alpha reductase pathway, also has a direct effect on the bone growth as well. There also are effects on calcium and phosphorus absorption, and estrogen is an important mediator which increases the calcium absorption to improve the bone health. Overall, there is a positive effect of bone in terms of these sex hormones. So just to summarize the entire endocrine process, growth hormone is acting via the osteoblast as well as indirect effect via IGF-1 to have a positive effect. Calcitriol is acting at the level of osteoblast and osteoclast, but in sufficient states has a positive effect. Cortisol has an inhibitory effect by decreasing osteoblast, increasing osteoclast. Testosterone mediated pathway of estrogen is responsible for anti-resorptive effect by suppressing the osteoclast, and insulin, of course, via insulin receptor is an anabolic effect. So a number of hormones are increasing bone mass, while cortisol is a predominant effect, which is the negative effect. We have not shown PTH and thyroxine here because both of them cause increased bone turnover, and excess states will basically result in a decreased bone mass overall because the bone resorption is happening very frequently.